everyone, and welcome to the second edition of the Weekly Heat. Alongside my co-host, Johnny Pickler, I am Dave Axis. Johnny, we've got a ton to talk about tonight. There's been a lot going on the last couple weeks. But before we get to our special guest that we're having on in just a few minutes, why don't you let everyone know what's going on in here this evening?
What's up, folks? What's up? Thank you for having us back. I think we all know we got a lot on our plate this week. There's a lot that happened in 2 weeks. I know we call this thing the Weekly Heat, but I don't know if anyone noticed we skipped last week. We got
lives, bro. We got lives.
We do. And we're gonna have some fun. But there's a lot of stuff that's gone in the league. We're talking Pro Bowl. We're talking awards. We're talking a great scheduled release show.
Dude, that show tonight, man. You see some of those games? There's going to be some wars going on in Texas. That's all I'm saying.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun seeing who wins that first Texas, trophy over there.
Yeah, I think we get them right out the gate, right? We get them like week 2 or 3, something like that. It's going to be something.
I think you play both Texas teams, Houston and Fort Worth.
Let's see. We start off with Arizona. We get Houston in week 3. Oh, Fort Worth not till week 4. So still two Texas teams in the first 4 weeks. Not too shabby.
Not too shabby at all, man. No, it's got to be good to be a Texas football player in the SFL right now. A lot of rivalries brewing, but yeah. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about. We got got some more. We got Xander Gold changing things up a little bit, coming back in the league.
Another quarterback coming out of retirement, short-lived as it was.
We got Ray Bentley. A little drama going on over there. I'm sure we'll touch on.
Where is Ray Bentley?
I don't know, man, but I wish I could just put my hand around his shoulder and rip an apple with him right now. But no, man, it's all good. We definitely got a great show ahead of us, and we're happy to have you guys join us. We appreciate it. I know that we got a lot of people who who requested the show, who wanted it back, and who said it was good stuff. So we're here for you guys. I mean, there were a few people, owners specifically that didn't like what we had to say last week.
I guess we just can't please everybody, bro, I guess.
I know, but we don't care. That's not, that's just not what this show's about,
Kind of the point. Oh, hey, real quick, I'm sorry to interject, but looks like Charles is saying I sound like a 1920 radio announcer because I am, bro. It's old school. I'm going back old school.
Yes, we will continue to tweak the settings we got over here, to try and give you guys the best technical performance, every week. But we didn't want to modify too many things in our setup because we are bringing a guest on board. So, but we will find, we do want the quality to be important for you guys. But as long as you guys can hear him nice and clear, and I don't talk with my loud ass over him, then I think that we'll be good to go.
That was good. If you guys can let us know, too, does Johnny sound normal and I only sound old school, or do we both sound old school? Just throw something in the chat. While you guys are doing that, let me get in here and thank Charles is in there, Mike Twin Screws in there, Siege Falco. What's up, Falco? Mello Taylor in the house. Who else we got? Ryan Owens from San Jose. Looks like Ross Napoli's here. Andre Krim. Oh, he came just for you, Johnny, by the way. And Soviet Sniper's already in here too. So we got a good amount of rookies, which is a good thing because we have a lot to talk about with the rookies coming up later in the show.
We do. Yeah, man. It's it's been a wild 2 weeks. And so I'm glad to see you guys pouring into the chat. It looks like some more people are showing up. And back to what I was saying before. It's what we do here. Is all for you guys. We're never looking to make a penny off of it. We want to, just come at you with some fun stuff, with some live stuff. We want you guys to weigh in on the conversation. We're looking to be, a voice of the players, a voice of the people. If a couple owners they don't like me, so they're gonna, not like the show also, then so be it, man. They'll always be in the minority, and they'll always be the ones looking, kind of foolish. So it really is that.
There you go.
But
and you know what? And you're right. We're here for the players. We want to hear from you. So throughout the show, throw out some stuff in chat. Throw out questions if you have them. Throw out comments, and we'll try to get to as many of you as possible. I see Doug Day finally in the house here. And is that Gerald? Looks like Gerald, Louisiana Revolution, is here. So
yeah, Gerald or Jeff. I'm sure that's Gerald repping them. And I want to be very clear because I see some comments coming in that I don't even want to make this owners versus players. Like when I'm talking people in the minority, I'm talking about like 2 or 3 or 4, kind of weird egg owners over there.
Right.
Like we have had pouring support from ownership. I think that 15 owners have hit my DMs, have called me on the phone saying what you're doing is great for the league.
Yep,
Ignore the voices, ignore the people who are trying to naysay you. It's sad that they're going to try and spread that and this and that. But I mean, like what we're doing is innocent. We're having a good time. Like again, I think it's more just like, dude, do you feel scared or something, like being attached to Johnny Pickler? Because I think it's just that old crew that's fading away that hates me for some reason. That's just like hating on the show now.
Yeah, I guess probably a good thing I'm part of the new crew then, because I'm not scared, bro. I'm here. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to rock and roll.
Right. I mean, you went to war and stuff, so I don't think any keyboard warrior is going to put you in your place.
No keyboard warrior is going to scare us, man. Come on.
But I mean, dude, without further ado, I think that you think it's about time to get our guest on the show. What do you think?
I think so. Let me ask: does anybody have any guesses on who our special guest might be tonight? Let me see here. No, Andre, you don't scare Johnny, by the way. Let's see if anybody's got any answers. If not, I will start the introduction if you've got them ready to go, Johnny.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Oh, D. Dacey thinks Napoli. It's Ross Napoli. Nope. Okay, so here we go. Introducing the very, very first guest ever on the Weekly Heat. He is from Syracuse, New York. He is a former active duty Marine for 6 years. He was a marksmanship instructor for recruits at MCRD, where the Marines go to boot camp. He is the global lead for an international IT services company where he has 125 resources.
Dude, excuse my language, but that's a resume right there you just don't fuck with right there, man.
He goes by many, many names, such as, drum roll please, Connor Darien, tight end for the Lincoln Rattlesnakes, the SFL's new Director of Compliance, and of course his real name, Marc Hurwitz. Marc, welcome to the show. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing great, man. How about you?
We're doing outstanding. It's great to have you on the show. I want to start off by asking you, how and why did your position, the Director of Compliance, even come about for the SFL?
Well, it's actually kind of twofold, right? So, how the position came about is, Cam, some others, that there needed to be some type mechanism. Nope. Some type of mechanism.
Right.
In regards to, folks, I'll say behaving them, right, adhering to the code of conduct. And the way that I ended up in this role is actually kind of interesting, right? So I was about 4 weeks into the league, and, I saw some things that I didn't really understand, and I've actually seen it echoed here a number of different times about when you join this league, what do you do? Right? I mean, you go to the website, and I'll be honest with you. I mean, I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing here, and it actually caused me to delay me joining the league by a couple months. I was like, forget it. I don't want. So instead of complaining to somebody and just saying, oh, this is an issue, I said, you know what? I'm going to take the initiative. I'm going to create a step-by-step how to join this, including, how do you pay for it, and, all that kind of stuff.
Which is great, because it can be extremely convoluted and overwhelming for new people.
Yeah, so, I sent it over to Cam, and I said, hey, man, look, I've only been here for a month. I know you guys have been doing this for a really long time. I'm not trying to be a pain in the butt, but it was really confusing. Thought this might help. And, that kind of started a dialogue between myself and kind of hurt my background. I have 155 people who report. So,
Marc, you're going in and out for a second?
No, I'm sorry, buddy. I'm sorry.
There you go. There you go.
Yep. Okay. So, anyways, I talked to Cam about it, and I accepted the role. And one of the things about it that Cam was really excited about is, since he wanted someone in this role to be new, and what that allowed me to do is now obviously I do have some friends, acquaintance here, but I'm coming into this with no friends. I have no alliances. If you break the rules, you're going to get, you're going to be dealt with. It's pretty straight and simple. I'm kind of robotic about how I deal with it. If you break the rule, you get in trouble. If you don't, you're fine. Pretty simple.
Perfect.
Okay. So segueing to that. So you're talking about the rules. You're talking about breaking the rules. I read over your new code of conduct, and it looks like you added, looks like about 4 bullet points to the minor offenses. I'd like to read them to the crowd here, to the show, and then if you want to jump in and maybe mention why one or two were important, or we can go one by one, however you feel about talking about them. The first bullet point is, and these are all minor offense examples for those of you listening in. The first bullet point says, any comments deemed inappropriate by the Director of Compliance and or the league commissioner. So is that implying that it's just basically the two of you that have the power to, I want judge, jury, and executioner, if you will?
Essentially, Cam and I talked about it. Just from a reporting perspective, right? I mean, because look, the business, right? Look, business, and there's certainly a difference between, say, starting to talk about the First Amendment.
First Amendment, yeah, you're going in, you're going out again.
Sorry. So I think the First Amendment's a little much, but that being said, what that allows us is if something comes up, right, that is egregious but is not specifically called out in the code of conduct, it allows us to act, right? Because one thing that we've seen is with the code of conduct, we've had some folks complain that, oh, well, this wasn't specifically called out in the code of conduct, so it's not an issue. Well, okay, you can't have it both ways, right?
Right.
So, and the one thing that I want to be very, very clear about to everybody that's listening, and if anybody hears this later on, guys, the purpose of the code of conduct is not to punish, right? At the end of the day, and I know that we have some children in the league, but let's all act like adults, right? If you're going to trash talk, all that other stuff, let's just treat people the way we want to be treated, and there won't be a problem. I mean, that's really what it is.
Right. Okay. On the second bullet point, commentary deemed to be detrimental to the league, I think, is self-explanatory. The third bullet point, engaging in political discussions, which I know was not in there until you updated this, which has been pretty important, especially in this day and age.
Yep. Can I speak? I'd like to speak to that one.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Sure.
Yeah. So, what that really is meant to do, and again, I want everybody to understand perspective, right? This is, game played on. It's a game that's played on a system, right? This isn't, real world, and a lot of people. And well, Dave, I'll let you get into that because I know you think you want to talk about the escape, right?
Right.
But the purpose, but the purpose here is we want to keep. This is a great community. I think everybody would agree with that. We want to keep this great community united through football, right? And the only thing that political discussion can do is divide us, especially this day and age. Right. So we are saying, do not discuss politics in the league. We don't want it. So don't.
Right, and I would agree. Just to piggyback on that, I would personally say that myself and some other people I know, we actually come into this league to escape, what's going on in the real world or what's going on in our real lives. I don't want to bring that into the SFL, and I actually like the fact that it's a rule that we can't talk about that. Johnny, you have any thoughts so far?
Yeah, no, I love Marc's role. I think he's going to be fantastic at it, and to just kind of go off something he just said, I believe, and I don't want to mix your words, Marc. I was taking a sip of wine and listening to you at the same time. I heard you say something like, we're making this a place about football and football only. That's kind of how it should be, and there's really, there's kind of nothing can benefit, by someone taking a political stance. Now, the one thing I just want to be clear on for those listeners, for one, I also, I'm in your guys' boat. I don't care. I don't want to know anyone's political affiliations. I don't want to have those debates. I don't want to have those arguments. I don't want to see it go back and forth. I don't want to see a league divided by any of these things. That being said, and we're on a much smaller stage. We're not NFL players by any means. We're not even on the stage that other esports are on. Some people, though, feel compelled to say things that they feel is right when they're given some level of a stage. And I think that it's to a following, if they consider themselves any type influential, or they just feel like they feel actually more guilty by not speaking up at all when in times of crisis and stuff like that. So while I think that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that this stuff needs to stay out of the Discord, out of our little community. I don't think that someone should be penalized if they were to do it if they're a part of the league, but they're allowed to do it on their own social media. If I wanted to go on Twitter and I wanted to go rally something up, as long as I'm not saying F-bombs, saying racist words, saying this and that, but making my own stance on my own platform, I don't think the league should hold me accountable to that, and I don't think they should hold other people accountable to that if they're supporting Black Lives Matter or they're supporting a certain cause on their own channels. But I would be in support of keeping it out of Discord. Do you want to clarify how far this stretches with the SFL and how much they want to limit someone's speech?
I want to be clear. It's not about limiting speech, right? So
I just had fun with you with that one.
I'm not taking that bait. So
he's good, man. There we go. We got the right guy in place.
Yeah. So the whole thing about it is this, Johnny. Again, and I think Ross actually said this in there. That's what Twitter's for, right? That's what your own social media is, right? The only time that any of this would extend past, I'll say, the Discord or situations, you have your podcast here, right? If your Twitter is Johnny Pickler SFL, you're under the code of conduct. Why? Because you're making the SFL part of your persona. If you want to have your own thing, don't tie the SFL to it. Very simple. That's what Twitter's for.
Okay, so on that, let me ask you. I don't know if he's still in the chat or not, but I saw Joker in there, and we all know that Joker was his contract with Atlanta was voided because he said on Twitter, his own personal account, that he was looking forward to going back to Atlanta. So if it doesn't say SFL and it was his own Twitter account, why would he have had his contract voided with Atlanta?
That is something that is not under. Speak.
Say that one more time. Couldn't hear you.
Sorry, that is not under the office of director of compliance. So I can't.
Oh,
speak.
so that's
a director of player personnel issue. Director of player personnel.
Player personnel.
Okay. Okay. So there must be another set of rules written somewhere that we can take a look at, maybe. If we get in contact with them.
Yep.
Okay. The last bullet point I wanted to go
Oh,
over.
and real quick, just
Go ahead, Johnny.
because I see NC Jester, he kind of has the same question as me. Well, what if we have stuff about the SFL in our bio? Like, he's proud, just like me. My Twitter's been around way before I became a part of the SFL, and my Twitter handle is not, it's Johnny2K. That actually extends from the 2K League and me playing other types of video games. I do have, though, that I'm the #1 overall draft pick in season 14 of the @Simulation Football League. I feel that I'm, if anything, that's just a benefit for the SFL. If the SFL, do you want me to strip that away from myself, or only do that if I'm about to, put up comments that might be, a violation of code of conduct? Is that considered realm? Does the code of conduct, go to people who have the SFL in their bio?
You know what, John? I'm going to be honest with you. I think that's a really great question. So I will get back to you on that, and I'm not trying to deflect.
No, that's the best way that anyone could, in a position like you, could roll.
I truly don't know, because I will tell you Marc's opinion that if you have and I'm just going to pick it, the glorious, at Lone Star Glory, right? Let's just say, Lone Star Glory, at Lone Star Glory SFL, and a bunch of trash, goes out on that. Yeah, that's a problem. But at Johnny2K, and you say that you're part of the league, my opinion, that's your Twitter. We're not here to run your life. Yeah. So, but again, and this is one of the things too about my position and other things that everybody's seeing is, the league is changing, right? The rules that were here 6 months ago were for a much smaller league, right? That had a couple people coming back, right? And this is where we get into, I know this is a player personnel thing, but when you start talking about retirements and people coming back, well, okay, those And I'm talking about, the rookies and the draft and how all that happened, retirements, all that. Just as
Okay, good FYI for everyone to hear. The last bullet point I want to ask you about, which is the fourth and last bullet point that was added to the new version of the Code of Conduct, is stating that inappropriate and or unlawful actions are appropriate. So do you want to expand on that at all, or maybe break down what that means exactly?
I'll be honest with you, I think it should speak for itself.
Okay.
Those words are pretty easy to understand.
So, stating that inappropriate and or unlawful action. So if I say on here that I'm going to go commit a crime.
And someone says that's justified or something like that?
Right. Something along those lines?
Yeah, if you were to say that, yes, that would be inappropriate.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to go kill somebody. Yeah, that's typically regarded as bad.
Now, typically, yes.
Now, and it's like, because for me,
this is Andre Krim in referring to Johnny, but go ahead.
Yeah, and real quick, for me, this rule would already be covered under your first bullet point of just anything deemed inappropriate by Cameron and by this, is punishable. Is this that bullet point already covers that? So is this bullet point to now kind of punish the people who were backing whoever put that other bullet point out, or who are saying, hey, no, dude, he was justified by saying that, because, or else, that's what it seems like the point of this bullet is, or else, it would all be covered under the first bullet point by just saying whatever you and Commish say, is not appropriate, is against the rules,
Right.
Yeah, I will say, without getting into detail, there were statements made, and long story short, we thought it would be best to address it specifically with these words, to call it out, outside of that first original. Wanted to be very...
Gotcha.
Yeah, Mark, we're starting to lose you at the end there.
Yeah, sorry. I'm trying not to... I kind of have to speak really loud, so...
Oh, okay.
It's my wife.
That's okay. Hey, louder the better so she can hear you, bro.
Yeah, because she gets it.
There you go. Yeah. Okay, so let me ask you, where does trash talk come into play with this kind of thing?
And real quick, before you get into trash talk, one last question, my bad, is that when it comes to all of these issues, and I think this is kind of important, just maybe it is, maybe it isn't, when it comes to all these comments, basically these are all going to be policed up comments on Discord. It's kind of a way of moderation, and I think it's a good thing. Now, can we expect you to be doing that active moderation, or if someone sees a comment that they think violates one of those rules, is that the only way it's ever going to be addressed, is if it's brought to your attention? Are you kind of going to stay behind closed doors, let everything be said that wants to be said, unless someone brings it to your attention, or is it going to be, or is it going to be you're actively looking for these comments? Because I still think I see a comment as recent of yesterday that seems political to me, but I'm not going to go running to you necessarily about that.
Right. So I will say my intent is to stay behind closed doors, but I will say that I am also an active member on Discord. Now, I will say for a lot of folks, I actually go back to work on Monday, so I will not be on Discord at all during the day. So, maybe that's good for some folks.
Everybody hear that? That's the time to get on there.
Yeah, exactly right. So I'm not out here looking. I guess I'll put it that way, right? If things are truly offensive to people, and that's really what this is about, right? We want everybody to feel welcome. And if people are truly offended by something, then yes, please bring it to me and I will address it. Now, there is some subjectivity, whether or not, honestly, it's truly offensive. I will say, honestly, I understand.
Because it's in the eye of the beholder before it comes to you, right?
Well, it is, and that's where, I think part of the difficult part of my job comes in, right? Is, somebody may think, oh, this is very offensive, and if I read it and I go, I don't understand, I would certainly try to understand from that person. And I'll be honest, some things have happened, already, and I'm learning as we go as well, right? I am not perfect, as things come up, we learn how to deal with things a little different, but one of the other things that I want to make sure that folks understand too is, I said earlier, this is a football league, right? We don't want to talk about politics, but remember, guys, this is a football league.
dish it out.
Exactly. And that's just really a broad statement. I haven't really seen it, but I just know human nature, right? Somebody's gonna be mad, or somebody they don't like is gonna say something to them, and it's I'm gonna go run into Dad or RoboCop or whatever the hell people call me, and oh Mark, warn this person, or take this and that away. Again, that's not the purpose, right? So we want it to be. We don't want to limit the fun. So it's a delicate balance. Right, so I guess that's all I can really say about that. But Dave, before I do go, whenever that time will be, I do have a question.
Okay, before we get to that, let me. There's a question actually on the chat. Cameron Curtis is asking if the punishments are uniform, are they based on intent, etc. And Cameron, what I can tell you is, and maybe Mark can do this again later. I know you've already posted the new code of conduct once or twice. If maybe you can post it again and they can take a look. But Curtis, to answer your question, there's different levels of offense for how many offenses. There's something for the first offense, the second offense, the third offense, and so on. And then we'll get that posted in Gen chat later this evening, and hopefully that answers your question. I don't see it. I can't tell if it's still on there, but
yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, the punishments are handed down. I mean, I will tell you that the process. I mean, it's not the entire process, but the ladder, so to speak, right, is there for everyone to see. One of the key things that I want to make sure folks understand is, if you are given a warning, right, just say, hey guys, look, whoever happened to do whatever it was. If you are warned, I'm not telling the league, right? I'm not telling everyone. It's between essentially that individual, me, and I keep track of it, right? Because obviously if they do something again, we go further in the ladder. Right. So, because I'm not going to name and shame somebody. Well, I don't want to do that at all, but I'm not going to name and shame somebody if they say something stupid, right? Or they make a mistake, right? Everybody makes mistakes, all that kind of stuff. No, in no way, shape, or form am I going to announce it. But I will say, if you do it the second time, per the code of conduct, it will be announced to the league, because it has to be. Because, let's say for a player, you lose your progression. So your owner is going to know, your opponents are going to know, all of that kind of stuff. And I'm just using a player as an example, because owners, staff, everybody else has their own, I'll say ladder to follow.
And real quick, just so everybody is clear, I'm sure you'd want to make this point that, because you are kind of relying on the community, like you said, you work your day job and this and that, and you will be relying on the community to police their own brethren and sisters of the league up, and when they notice something that might be a foul, to bring it to your attention. I'm sure you'd want it to be known that, that the individual who brings it to your attention probably has complete anonymity, when doing so.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, John, thank you. I appreciate that. Absolutely. This, it's not, ooh, somebody said something about it. Not at all, right? It's about making people, feel welcome in the league. And if somebody truly is offended by something, we'll talk about it. And if it's just absolutely ridiculous, then I may not need to talk to you. It really depends on you.
Okay.
I hope that makes sense. And
no, it does. It makes a lot of sense.
And for the folks in the chat, I do want to let you guys know that Craven did not offend me. Shut up, Dave. At the end of the day, for this stuff, I'm transparent. I have nothing to hide. I want this league to be fun for everybody. That's what it should be. And to sum it up, really, don't be an ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, is it that hard? I mean, the fact that we have to go through this, honestly, I think is silly. Don't be an ass.
And if you're going to talk smack, be able to take it back, right?
Yes, I would say that would be a personality trait that you should have.
Just to be clear, if someone wants to attack my quarterback rating and say that it doesn't matter because I didn't throw that many number of balls, and then my girlfriend wants to put said individual in their place by letting them know the meaning of the quarterback rating and why that stat was even invented to measure QB's efficiency regardless of the football scheme that they're in, and to also point out that Marcus Dunhill even threw less passes than me, so by discrediting me, they'd be discrediting the league's MVP and all of his stats. So if that individual were to get offended, they probably shouldn't go running to you about that.
I am not in the.
Is that a hypothetical, Johnny?
I will not answer a hypothetical question because there may be extenuating circumstances that I'm not aware of. Thank you for your question. Next question.
All right, so I don't see any more questions for. Let me see here real quick, Dave.
Yeah, if anybody's got questions, let me.
Apparently, me having no hair offends people, so now everybody's getting offended by everything. Apparently, I don't see any legit questions on here. So let's take your director of compliance hat off for a moment, and then let's talk to Connor Darien, the tight end rookie for Lincoln.
Okay.
How is your player doing this season? How are you liking the minor leagues? What's your take on the draft, etc.?
Yeah. Well, I think my player's doing pretty well. I think I'm the lowest rated tight end. As far as value goes, I think I have just as many touchdowns as everybody. I think second or third in the league in reception started, so that's pretty cool. I think the SFLM is actually really cool. I think it's a lot of fun. Of course, I have some ideas, about, maybe I might do a couple of things different, right? It would be kind of cool if, like, it was like used as a college, right? You're in college for 2 years, so in that second year, you're better than other, the first year guys in the SFLM or something like that. But that's for Cam and Marcus and guys smarter.
It's not a bad idea.
But as far as the draft goes, I got to tell you, I am really looking forward to it. Again, one of the comments that I made earlier is, the draft rules that were in place before, were for a draft that was maybe 1, 2, 3 rounds. Now we're talking 7, right? Because we have so many. So I do like the fact, and I'm not just being a company guy here.
Such a company guy.
Yeah, if you knew me, trust me, that's not. But the fact that Cam, took time to sit down with, I think it was like 40 or 50 rookies one night, and they ended up coming up with a better way for the rookies to go through the draft process. I think that was really helpful, and I think it will make things better and kind of control some of that angst, right? About,
that happened actually 2 weeks ago tonight, and things have seemed to simmer down for the most part. Some of the rookies still have some questions we're going to go over later.
Yeah.
But that was good. Yeah, Cam took the time. I think they were on for a couple hours, and he answered a lot of questions for that, so that was great.
Yeah, no. I thought, it's really, really helpful. And one of the, Cam and I talked about this, one of the things, with my role is, with Cam having to deal with trying to, work, the code of conduct, complaints from folks and everything else, he didn't actually have time to actually be the commissioner of league. So now with me here, and once he gets settled, right, I think we all are all, for folks that don't know, open headquarters, so once he gets settled and everything else, he'll be able to focus on focus on, so when it is time to make, it'll be an easier.
Got it. We're having a hard time hearing you at the end again, too.
Sorry.
No worries. So before we let you go, I don't see any other questions in here. I don't know if Johnny has any, but if Johnny doesn't have any, then you can go ahead and ask us your question.
Yeah, go for it, my man.
All right, so I was just going to ask Jeff from, the Tiger King. He's upset that Carol Baskin took over his old zoo.
I'm not sure what you're implying there at all.
Well, I'm not talking to you, Pickler. I mean, if you look at the picture of Dave Axis, he looks like, was it Jeff Clough or
Dude,
Jeff
he's
Crow
exactly like him, man. He's exactly like him.
Hey, is he the guy that got killed on the show or not?
He has like the same attitude too. I feel like if I was talking to Jeff on the phone, it would sound like you as well.
Yeah, he's a great looking guy with a wonderful voice. So I agree with you.
Yeah, there you go. No, awesome guys. And again, the one thing I guess for me to close out, if again people have questions or people have concerns, it's what I'm here.
Hey, we appreciate you coming on. We appreciate you taking the heat, putting your feet to the fire with us, and with all the people listening. Good luck this season. Good luck in the draft. And
hey John, I forgot one more thing.
Yeah, brother.
Where are you signing?
Hey,
Well, I'm running out of options, man. You know, but
There's only a few teams left.
but no, but good thing.
Are you gonna end up in the SFLM because you take too damn?
Yeah, no, yeah, we don't have to worry. We don't have to worry about that. My number 1 and my number 2 option have always stayed on the board. So
I'm joking. I know.
That's all we're worried about. Atlanta and Louisiana, baby. We're either way we're taking our talents down south. It doesn't matter which way we're going. But
anyway, what was all that talk earlier today when we were talking about how great the rookie showcase game was last year with you throwing me the ball? What happened to that talk?
I know, man.
Everybody forgot about you, Dave. Nobody cares about you anymore.
Apparently not. Apparently this is the Johnny Pickler show. Hey, I guess it's the Johnny and Marc show now. I'm out.
Yeah.
Peace out, everybody.
But hey, real talk, Marc. We definitely appreciate you having on.
Yep.
For one, we appreciate having you on. 2, we appreciate you being in the position that you are in the league. I think it's one of Cam's best decisions of the year is to bring you on board, someone who's completely unbiased, is logical, has a great professional background, and that we can all trust to handle issues that need to be handled. And so I'm personally proud to be a part of a league where you're in place and you have a league staff role, and I think that some teams might just be scared of having the Popo on their team, and some teams might find it a nice asset to and put a little put a little something in your pocket, just to make sure that they stay that they stay in line with the DOC. But either way, no, I'm just joking around in all fun and in all seriousness, though. It is awesome having you on, and I'm sure that we'll have you on at a later point as well.
All right, boys. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Marc.
Yep.
Hey, so lots of jokes going on in the chat here. It looks like I see 3 pictures of myself from Hike the Earth, except that that's not me. That's the guy from Tiger King. Where are people getting these pictures from? It's not on my Twitter, I don't think. Or it might be. By the time we end the show, I bet somebody puts that on my Twitter.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'm surprised you don't have it as like your profile pic already. Just like,
you know what? Maybe next week we'll change the weekly heat picture to that guy instead of me.
No one will notice. No one will notice.
Nobody's even gonna know. Nobody's even gonna know. So, hey, if you guys enjoyed that interview with Marc, and you guys have some ideas of other people you may want on here that you want to ask tough questions to and get some tough answers and get some answers to those tough questions, then go ahead and throw a DM at Johnny or myself, or you can even throw it on here on the chat. And we Gunny. Everybody wants Gunny on the show, Johnny. That's like the 4th time I've seen it.
Well, we're here for the people, so we probably got to eventually do what the people want, Yeah,
I guess so. I guess we have to. So speaking of what the people want, let's talk about that schedule release show this evening.
Yeah, and you guys have been chatting it up, but keep chatting with us, keep telling us, your opinions on the show. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I thought the show was done well. I like the element of having, the 6 guys on there and weighing their opinions and this and that. It was unfortunate the show, was cut off by by something else on the agenda for FTF Next. But, that's TV for you. And
That's TV.
And so that's going to happen. But, overall, it was a good show. It was really interesting. I mean, I myself didn't have as much stake in the game in my mind. I was, I was looking at Atlanta's schedule and Lone Star's schedule, considering that, I feel those are two options where I'll be, helming the offense next year. But besides that, it was just interesting to see different teams come across the board. What big thoughts popped out to you, buddy?
Well, obviously for me, it was glorious to see the Lone Star schedule, and that we're going to be playing 3 Texas. We have 3 games in Texas. We have 2 against Fort Worth. We have 1 against Houston. Of course, the schedule gods would have a game with us against Vancouver. That only makes sense.
That'll be fun.
And then to be honest with you, we got kind of a tough schedule. We got to play Mexico City. We got Queen City. We've got Chicago, Sioux Falls, St. Louis. A lot of playoff teams from last year. So it's actually we have a pretty decent schedule. We've got some obstacles ahead of us for sure. I do like the Week 2 matchup of Atlanta and Sioux Falls, a rematch of the championship this past season. That was great. And then here's the thing I don't understand. Maybe you understand it, or maybe somebody in the league or in the chat understands it. What is this fish and chips rivalry between London and St. Louis? I'm assuming you know because you played there, but I don't know what it's about.
Yeah, I think it was actually. I think that's not the full name of the rivalry. I think it was like like ribs versus fish and chips or something like that. It was supposed to. It was created between Liam, the owner of London, and Dwayne and Colin. I think Dwayne specifically over there on the ownership side of St. Louis. That the loser had to, if St. Louis loses the matchup, they have to go find, as authentic of fish and chips as they can find in their local area, and they have to go eat some fish and chips after the loss. And Liam out in London has to find the best, St. Louis baby back rib style he can find in the UK and go eat some of that. And I never really thought that was much of a punishment. I think I even said that in one of like my mini press conferences. I'm like, you know what? I'm like, maybe I'll eat some fish and chips after a win, because I mean that tastes pretty good. Anything tastes good after a win. So I remember saying that,
right.
But that's like the little fun. It's like a little like rivalry bet thing. It's like you have to prove that you have to go prove that you went out to find some effing fish and chips or some ribs in your area where there's nothing like that. Drive 45 minutes if you have to. You got to find the closest thing there is to some good ribs or some good fish and chips in their respective territories.
So SFL Deputy Commissioner Andrew just chimed in. He said if London wins, Dwayne eats fish and chips in St. Louis. I'm sorry, if St. Louis wins, Liam has to eat barbecue. So there you go. You were on it. Hey, Deputy Commissioner, we're glad you're on. We're actually going to talk about you later this evening if you want to stay on the show for a little bit. We've got some questions from some rookies in relation to the draft that we're going to address that were sent to Johnny and myself. So if you can stick around, that would be great. We'd love to have you.
Man,
what else about the schedule? And I saw that there's what are we calling the rivalry now between Lone Star and Fort Worth? I think Doug Day, if you're still on there, you put something on the Twitch chat during the show to name that rivalry, but I think we should have some kind of contest or something and get that thing named, because you know what, if we play twice in our first year,
there it is, the Highway 35 Highway 35 shootout.
The Highway 35 shootout. I like that. There it is. I'm going to add that to my list of rivalries here. So we got Vice Wars, we got Fish and Chips,
and
whatever the Florida one was. I don't know what that was called.
And similar to kind of like the Armed Forces Bowl, how there's Navy, Army, and Air Force always competing for one trophy. I think that you should include Houston and kind of have like a Texas trophy for who dominates that state.
Texas Showdown. Somebody just said that's a great idea.
And as far as the schedules, I'm trying to think of other games that jumped out at me too.
Does anybody in the chat have anything they want to say about the schedule show? Anything they liked? Anything they didn't like? Games they're looking forward to?
Or be bold and put a team down there that's not your own team that you play for, and put a record next to their schedule after you see their schedule. I'd love to see that. Like I looked at Carolinas and I'm like, you guys are 4-8 this year. Maybe you get a fifth win. But
is it just me, or did Vancouver's schedule look pretty? I don't want to say easy, but favorable. How about that? Vancouver's schedule looked kind of favorable to me.
Yeah, I didn't read too much into their schedule. I just know that I often root against them, for this. But it's not. We all know it's not the same Vancouver it was last year. So it'll be interesting to see all their pieces work. They just had a big couple last minute signings. They grabbed the Sword Washington, who took a season off, and it's gonna be Hellman their defense. He thinks that he can replace the Bash brothers all by himself. So that'll be interesting to see how he does out there.
Bash brothers, you hear that? You hear that, Dougie and Coach? Just throw that out there.
So that will definitely be a fun game to watch when you guys go against each other.
Right. And Dougie just threw out Vancouver and Jacksonville, and I think that's a week 1, so that's actually good. Where'd they go? 3 overtimes, I think, in the playoffs, something like that, or maybe 2 overtimes.
Yeah, I believe you're right. When we're getting Napoli says Louisiana 9-3. Well, you're a rookie, and you're looking to get you're getting some love from a team that might be on have you on the board. But I can't disagree with that. And as much as I honestly am torn between Louisiana and Atlanta. They will. I guarantee both those teams will be playoff teams this year and contenders for years to come. There's no questioning Mark Chisholm and what he's built and the talent that he's retained. And them coming back strong. And boy, yeah, I mean, if anyone's sleeping on Gerald and what he's building in Louisiana, and if you don't know what he's capable of, you'll know pretty damn soon. So I mean,
really quick, yeah.
Both those two teams are going to be powerhouses, I think, for years to come. Someone put who's PDX 1-11. Who's PDX? Who's the abbreviator?
I don't know. I don't know who that is.
I'm trying to think what team he's trying to abbreviate there. But
Oh wait, PDX. Oh wait, Sioux. Oh, maybe it's SX.
oh, maybe he meant Sioux Falls. Maybe he meant
Sioux Falls.
I don't know. Sioux Falls isn't going to be 1-11. They're a dominant team in their own right. But and then
he's talking about Portland. That's the code for the airport code for Portland.
oh, PDX. Okay, there you go. Portland. I can see Portland struggling. I can see them struggling out of the gate. They actually looked like they had a tough schedule. On top of that, they're just one of those teams that it's part of being an expansion team. They don't have their roster's pretty bleak right now. Like a couple other teams in the league. So it's going to be tough to kind of envision them being a playoff team in year one, much less doing very well. But good luck to them. I will say that an interesting, I think I commented this during the thing, is like one of the only things I said while watching the show. I thought it was a cool storyline though, and it may, help, as far as Xander Golden, I know we'll touch on him later, but I saw a game on the schedule that's Queen City versus Fort Worth, and I thought that was pretty cool. I'm like, that'll be a fun storyline, not only because of the big dog owners, Nacho and Hacker playing against their former team in Queen City, but it's funny that the guy who's, I actually think has a legitimate chance statistically of doing as good as Hacker, if they keep a similar system. Diesel Powell from, who played for New Orleans last year. Diesel Powell is now, catching balls, over there, and he's been the chosen one to take Hacker's spot. And I think it's just ironic and fun storyline that Hacker is going to be it's now known that he's going to be getting the ball thrown to him from Powell's former quarterback in Xander Gold from New Orleans. So I think that's an interesting storyline right there.
We had to know with 4 new teams, and new is in air quotes, there was going to be a lot of movement, so that was going to automatically just have some really good games and instant rivalries and teams playing against their old coaches or their own teams, and I think that's going to make that a really, really fun season for season 15. It's going to be this season 15 is going to be epic for sure. The Rapid Raccoon said, "Did we mention Predators as well? That was tough." Yeah, I think they actually talked about that on the show, that they have one of the tougher schedules. And I think I don't know if it's the guys from Jacksonville or not, but they put out that who has the toughest schedules thing, so we'll have to see when they come out with that, where the Predators actually fall on that. So, Johnny, you want to talk about the Pro Bowl, or you want to go straight to awards?
Yes, I'm down, and sorry for the hesitation there.
That's okay.
My Kelly snuck me a list to write on. She's like, grocery list, write down, and of course, during the live show, I'm supposed to write down, what I want from the groceries. I literally wrote something to munch on, and and one other necessity.
You had to write something down. I thought she was giving you a grocery list, wrap up the show and get to the grocery store.
Oh, no, yeah, no, she's like, I'm not wasting my time here listening to this in the background. I'm heading out to the store and write down what you want. This is your one chance, So I'm just like, something to munch on, please, after, so, but yeah, so that's that. Yeah, dude, I'm down to talk Pro Bowl, and everybody's thoughts on the Pro Bowl, and appreciate it, D-Day, speaking of, you got an adorable family. I appreciate that, they are adorable, and they're mine, and I love them. But, yeah, dude, let's do Pro Bowl talk.
Okay. So, how'd you like the Pro Bowl, Johnny?
Dude, I thought it was a great time, man. People were ragging on me. I knew Andy would be, quick to the bit.
Of course.
He was going to be quick to the bit to controlling the social media channel for the SFL. He's like, Johnny throws second interception to Tank Bennett and blah, blah, blah. But my joke was that, dude, I'm just honored to be here. I'm wearing a Pro Bowl uniform, and and honestly, speaking as the quarterback, Johnny Pickler, we were extremely hungover for that game. We had an awards, the SFL Honors Awards ceremony after party that went into the wee hours. I don't even know how it was extremely bright on the field out there. I couldn't, I don't even know how I saw anything. I kept telling him, I'm like, dude, just leave Pepper in the game. And Eddie Gage is like, no, we got to get you reps, man. We got to get you reps. I'm like, well, it is what it is then, brother. We're like, let's go. And just licked my fingers and gave it the best shot. But, besides that, it was just.
There you go. Breaking news. You guys heard it here on the Weekly Heat. Johnny was hungover in the Pro Bowl.
Unfortunately, I was. Then they shouldn't have SFL party. After party. They shouldn't have the SFL honors the day before the Pro Bowl.
Poor SFL scheduling. I would completely agree with
The
you
day
on
before
that.
the Pro Bowl, man. I mean,
I tell you, I will say that the one play I've seen maybe about 40 or 50 times already is Christian's pass to Harish. I don't know how many yards that thing was, but I keep watching it because every time I go to Twitter or if I go somewhere, it's still there. It's everywhere. So I guess that was the game-winning play.
I don't even know if it was I think I think that team. Oh, did they win? No, I think we lost. See, I was hungover, man. I'm telling you. I don't. Harish caught a ball. I don't even think that team won. Oh, the East won. We did win. All right, we won. There's Marc.
Did you see what Ross said? Don't tell Marc. That's gonna be a conduct violation.
Dude, yeah, Marc's just like, dude, your stock for us in Atlanta just went down, man. Marc. It's like, Coach, man, I was having fun out there, man. Like, I mean, that's a Pro Bowl game, baby.
Roberto said Michael Jordan wouldn't do that. Yeah, he would, and he did.
Yeah, dude, Roberto has been trolling me this entire time. If anyone doesn't know who Roberto is by now, because he keeps saying Johnny was never a gladiator, Johnny was never this, it seems like he wants me to talk about him a little bit and stuff. Roberto is personally a great friend of mine. He'll probably stand up in my wedding one day if he doesn't keep on with this shit, Johnny was never a gladiator. Johnny was never this. If I'm to throw something in his face, dude, if I wasn't so sought after by the gladiators, you wouldn't even be a gladiator right now, buddy.
Oh snap! Shots fired.
You and their assistant general manager, my brother Marc, you two wouldn't have been gladiators either if I didn't have any say in that. So if you're so proud to wear that gladiator jersey, you can thank me for it, baby. But
Eddie's saying shots fired. Look at that. He's like, laugh my LMFAO, love you. That's awesome. Hey, speaking of the F word, my former head coach and owner, Mark Chisholm from Atlanta, is in the chat. And I think that's a good segue to the awards show. And I want to say congrats to him for, was it Owner of the Year or Franchise of the Year? I can't remember how they classified it, but Atlanta, him, and then of course Marcus getting MVP. I mean, Atlanta just had a great year.
Marc got Coach of the Year. He got Coach of the Year.
Okay.
I do think that you can't argue with that. He deserves that. You're a champion, man. I don't know what else can do that. I do think that Gerald got sold a little short on that ballot. And I wish that the SFL did a little bit better to clean that up statistically. It said like he was responsible for the number 1 QBR in the league, and that wasn't even necessarily true. I was the number 2. We were the number 2 QBR in the league behind Atlanta and Marcus Dunhill, and it just said simply like here's the thing I want to say about Pro Bowl voting, and this is what leads me into it. All right, is that
okay? And
because I know there's league staff watching. I really think that it's just important that we get these votes done earlier on. If it's okay if you want to spread out content, if you want to host the Pro Bowl in the middle of the off season, just to have it because everybody's looking for some content to grab onto in this long stretch. Everybody's dying for football. I'm fine with that, but the voting, in my opinion, should take place way earlier when these seasons are fresh in people's mind. I mean, it was a storyline that St. Louis really made history and surpassed a lot of people's expectations. And St. Louis actually set a record in turnover differential. That wasn't even highlighted, necessarily in the stats right off the bat in the original ballot for Gerald and stuff like that. And so it's not just for Gerald; it's for everybody's sake. I don't mind the rookies and the fan, people getting a vote, but I mean, I think a lot of these rookies didn't even watch the majority of last season and stuff, and then there's players who retired after this, who maybe they retired for a good reason and honorably, and it wasn't just as a reason to say because of the subscription model or something like that. The point is, I think when this stuff's fresh in people's head, either right after the regular season or right after that is when voting should kind of take place, and then the Cam can hold those votes and those results close to his heart, and and not leak any knowledge out, and then they can be released later on, or we can play the Pro Bowl later on. I don't have a problem with the timing of the Pro Bowl itself. I do have a problem with the voting and when it took place.
And just to be clear, the voting for the awards was done by the league or by the players in the league. Whereas the Pro Bowl voting or Pro Bowl assignments was done by the league and Cam, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Cam took over the Pro Bowl assignments. I was okay with. I think that most people who really were in tune with the league, Cam
said nobody voted for All-Star game. Johnny's drunk.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant,
I know,
Cam. Yeah, Cam. I meant the All-Star game, or I meant the awards. I just said it again.
You meant the awards, Cam.
Dude, we're only on our second glass, right now, and we're feeling okay. But I do want to say, Cam, you run a great league. You know I love you, and you do a great job with everything. You handle it all good. But I will say, just voting, and anyone who has any votes for the awards, that should have happened earlier on. As far as the Pro Bowl itself, though, I think it's fine with Cam picking it or a small staff picking it. I think there's a lot of less people that called out snubs this year, because for one, you're not a lot of people are willing to call out the commissioner on snubbing them versus calling out the people on snubbing them. And he did the best he could. I think he had maybe a small people help vote when there were of owners when it was close or something like that. But you got a lot of great players in there who were
it was great. Yeah, it was great.
They're good in their statistical categories, and it is what it is. But there you go, Twin Screw. # getting some wine too. That's one way to enjoy the show.
I got a nice Chardonnay going right now, Mike. Just FYI.
Oh man.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, so I had you sent a message out earlier today. I think it was today or yesterday on News Alerts, maybe, or maybe in Gen Chat, where hey, if you have some questions or if you have things going on that you want to talk to about the league, DM yourself or myself, right?
Yes, correct.
And so we had several, and most of them are surrounding rookies and the draft and the intricacies of the draft itself. Right before we get into that, though, we also had another quarterback unretire and come back, Xander Gold, which everybody knows. I think that happened yesterday, and there were some concerns in some chat in the SFLM general chat, and I just wanted to address that and say my personal feeling on that is that this is different than someone taking off a season or 2 or 4 or 5.
100%.
Like we talked a couple weeks ago, whereas Xander actually played this season, and he left a very nice message when he left, unlike some people before he left the server. He only took, I think it was less than 2 months off, and then he comes. We're still in the off season. Free agency is still going. I have zero problem with Xander Gold saying he wants to retire and changing his mind and coming back in this short period of time.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it either. I can feel it as like a quarterback in the minor leagues, because you've been counting numbers and counting spaces, and you feel like your chances are slimming down, and they are right now. I can feel the fact that you're angry about it, but I don't think you can take it out on the player. And in my view, it's just like a guy I just I love the irony of it though. Everybody's giving me a hard time about taking my time for a decision. He made a decision to retire, and now he regrets it, and he's going back on a bad decision, and he's jumping back in a league that's doing better than it ever has, and that's going to continue to grow. Similar to how Truzman did. It's you know what? You guys just take your times with your decision. Pump the brakes on the retirement announcements and stuff. Because you're going to go back. So don't give me flack about taking my time on a decision when people are making quick decisions. People are making quick decisions today.
Are taking months and sometimes years and changing their mind. Exactly.
Yeah. So, but yeah, again, we don't have to reiterate what we said in the last show. I think a lot of people agree with us, and I think that the league already knows they will address that for next season. They're going to fix it to where, just like Cam said, he wants people to feel the real decision of retirement. So if you decide to take a year off, you will feel that in some sort of way. In a negative way, whether it's against your guys' attributes or you're just not allowed back or this and that. So that will come down. That will come down the line. In next season when new rules come out and things like that, and owners vote on things. So I'm not worried about that. But happy to have Xander Gold back in town. In the league. I think that he was a good quarterback. And interested to see how he does for Fort Worth. Just so everybody knows, people tried to rub it in my face. It was weird. The Fort Worth guys didn't, because they have class and they truly always saw value in me. But Xander Gold fell in their lap, and he's a veteran quarterback, and they wanted to ink a deal. And also, those guys are very. I think that they're going to be a good team in the future. Those, Robert Garrett Jr., Stephen Hacker, Nacho. They are very meticulous. I've had hours of long conversations with those guys over the past weeks. They're very meticulous about the way they do things, the way they prep. And, in my mind, they just wanted to prep for the draft. They kind of were putting me a little bit on a hot seat. They're like, Johnny, do you have a decision type of thing? Because we would love to know that we can start to trade our picks up for this or that, or to trade draft picks and do things in that. And I think that, that Xander was a perfect solution for them. They got their veteran quarterback that they wanted, and now they can start thinking about the draft and not have to focus on me or anything else like that. So and they were very classy about it. I agreed to be transparent with them. They were transparent with me. They let me know that they were going to grab Xander before everyone else knew that they were going to grab Xander and stuff. So, so I appreciate their transparency, and it's a professionally run organization. I think they're going to do great down the line.
That's awesome. Hey, I'm hoping that Andrew and Cam, or at least one of them, are still in the chat as we start going to some of these questions that were sent to Johnny and I in our DMs to put out there and to ask any league members that may be able to answer them, or we'll just talk about them. Maybe they could be addressed later. The first one I have basically surrounds the second round of the draft, if you will. So there's some concern from rookies that if their primary position is not needed, and why can't they have an agreement with a team to still be drafted at their secondary position, but in the second round, instead of a team, say, skipping that round or whatever the term is going to be used this year. And I also saw that the deputy commissioner said the other day that teams cannot pass on picking. They will need to trade back if they don't want to pick later. So then that brings up the question: if I'm a team with only let's say 15 players, and I draft my primary position player in round one, but I don't need or want somebody at a particular position in round two, but I have my eye on a guy that I really like. I like him in the locker room. I like him, what he does off the field, and I'd like to have him in the third round at his secondary position. Can I not skip that position, that draft position, or am I going to be forced to draft there? I mean, or can I just let their clock run out and miss my draft pick? You understand what I'm saying? And then move on to the third round to get the player that I really want. And I don't know if those guys are still.
Yeah, I don't think that strategy is going to work out for that team if they let the clock run out and don't pick a player. I don't think the league's going to be like, oh, good thinking. We're going to give you a third round pick now. I think it's like, well, now you get an additional, supplementary draft pick in exchange, maybe if you're lucky, or you'll have to sign someone, after everything's said and done. I do get the kind of the drama there. It's like. But it's kind of like you have to find your happy medium, and there's a lot of pros and cons for the way you can look at this. I mean, they put this, now these rookies, and I say these rookies, I love all you rookies out there, but
we were rookies so long ago.
It's like the rookies, but it's important for them to ask these types of questions, and it's important for the league to start to view these things as the league's transitioning and as they get a tighter grip on their system as seasons go forward. I think the league put this rule in place that, hey, first and second round you have to spend on your on that primary position, and they did that to actually protect you rookies, so that you guys who've been checking in for a long time, playing for a long time, have a higher probability of getting drafted at the position that you want and stuff. Because in the past that rule didn't exist, just like the minors didn't exist. There were teams that, like, I had to be worried. Like, I wanted to play quarterback. It was the only position I was willing to play. If I, there was teams that wanted me at other positions because there's just no other quarterback spots, and if St. Louis didn't have the number one overall pick, London could have, London or Carolina or someone could have drafted me, with the first or second overall, and I would have nothing I could say about it. If I decided I said, no, I want to go play quarterback with St. Louis, then the only way I could have done and played quarterback with St. Louis is as base copper. I would have had to withdraw from the draft, sign with them as a free agency and stuff, and be awful, and they wouldn't even want me at that point. So, so they did this to actually protect rookies, and to help rookies get the positions that they wanted. Now I do see, when a team's in a unique position and they have 2 spots, and that's a first and a second round draft pick. They don't have a third round draft pick, but they see a guy who would be a stud at a secondary position, and they know that player's willing to play it. And they're out of quarterbacks to draft and things like that. I can see, that's why you're incentivized right now to get a deal done. Do what it takes to trade backwards to get that third round pick and trade your second round pick for a third round pick, because there are teams that need picks right now. There's teams that like St. Louis, I'm trying to think, Portland,
teams that just
Louisiana, these teams need players. To think that they won't trade one of their third round picks for your second round pick or something is maybe some type of goofy thought, but they only have one of those picks to trade too, so you will run out of teams quickly. I don't think it's a perfect system, but as far as, and I know we're going to actually talk about this more, but to kind of just respond to those rookies in question, know that they're just going to get better about this, and you won't have to worry about it years later when you're not a rookie, and then they're going to tighten up the system and there's even going to be more competition than there is for you guys right now. In future years, you're lucky there's 4 or 3 quarterback spots open, because there won't be that many next year probably. Maybe there will be with the 2 more, but you know what I'm getting at. But the point is, I think the league did do this in good intent, and it was actually to protect rookies, and they want them to be happy, and they want them to be drafted at the positions that they want to play number one, like that's AKA their primary position. So I think that's why the rule is in place.
So here's the follow-up question to that, right? So if I'm a team and I need more draft picks, and there's so many teams that won't be drafted in the first round, there's even less that we're drafting in the second round and then the third round. If I'm picking my third draft pick, but I've moved up into the second round because all of those slots are emptied, am I now being forced to pick my third pick of the draft as a primary player because it's technically in the second round, or is he still a third round pick, and I can still pick him as a secondary player? That was another question we got.
Yeah, so my response to that is I don't think that, and you can correct me if I didn't understand the question correctly, but the league is not doing the draft, to my understanding, how they did it last year. For example, last year, St. Louis.
Right, they just moved teams up.
They moved teams up. St. Louis, I can speak for my team specifically, St. Louis got 2 second-round picks because instead of an early first-round pick, because we were the first overall in every round, because we finished last place the year before that, we were first overall in the third round, but because teams forfeited their picks in the second round, we actually moved up into the second round and had 2 second-round picks. Because of the way they're structuring things this year, they're not going to do that. They're not going to make someone who's a third, whoever has the first and second and third overall the third round will stay the first, second, and third overall picks to the third round. No one's moving up to the second round. If people forfeit picks or they just don't have the pick, then it's just going to be a round with less picks in it. So no teams are going to be forced to move up.
Well, so Cam said you've been right on all fronts. I said, remember, if teams are out of roster spots prior to the draft, those picks are reallocated prior to the draft. And Cam, hopefully, if you're listening, what Johnny just said, is that correct, where I'm not going to get forced into the second round with my third round pick? Those are just spots that will go unpicked, and we'll keep moving on. So the first round, second round, third round will stay the way they are now, as opposed to teams moving up into other rounds. I hope that made sense. I'm trying to read the chat at the same time I'm talking. Not as easy to do. I have a whole new
he just said he just said it. No picks will move up.
Okay, good. All right.
Yeah.
So for those of you who shot out those couple questions that we just had, that we just discussed, Cam has answered those. And then the other thing was, I wanted to just make sure we're clear on this. Cam, again, Andrew had messaged in one of the chats that teams cannot pass on picking. They will need to trade back if they want to pick later. And so basically, he says nope.
Say it again.
Well, as I was reading that, Cam said nope.
I'm not sure what he's talking about, but here.
Oh, he says I was saying picks will move up.
Picks will move up?
That's what he's saying. Bad comma placement. It's all about grammar, Cam.
Yeah, so that's something the league will have to address. Obviously, there's an issue about that. We don't have a clear understanding about that. I would think that's unfortunate that or that team should have an asterisk on them. If that's the case. If let's say I have the first overall pick in the third round, and then because of second round forfeitures or something, my first round pick by default becomes a second round pick, I should then have an asterisk by my team to have the leniency to use third round rules with that pick if I wanted to, you know.
Right.
So
hey, if you're down for it and you can make it happen real quick, Cam says he can jump on if we want to get it straight from the horse's mouth.
yeah, tell Cam, there, I'll send you an invite. Cam, you're going to join this Discord channel that I'm going to, and go down to Inline to be live as a voice channel, and I'll drag you right in.
In the meantime, I will answer a couple.
And then we'll kick your ass right off, Cam, when we're done using you. But no, I appreciate
Hey,
it.
let me know when he's in. I'm going to read a couple lighter questions we got while you're getting that set up. Somebody asked if it was our decision, where would the next SFL convention be held and why? Well, the next convention I would keep in Florida, where Dave is it hard being so awesome. No, it actually comes real easy, Doug, but thank you for the question. I would keep the next year's convention right where it's going to be in Jacksonville, since they weren't able to host it this year. Then the next year, if it was up to me, I would probably put a little more centralized in the country, maybe like Nashville, maybe Denver, possibly Vegas. I know, Coach, I know you want to go to Vegas, bro. I can tell you what, I'm not coming all the way to Oregon for the convention.
Here comes the commish.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the commissioner, Cameron Irvine. Cam, how you doing? Oh, maybe he's not doing very well.
He's probably he's notorious for having his stuff on mute on national
Oh,
television.
that's true. He did that tonight, too. I saw that. Topeka, Kansas. Hacker, we're not having the convention Topeka, Kansas. Who lives there? I don't even know anybody who lives there. AJ, Atlanta already had their turn. Oh, Chicago. Actually, Chicago would be a lot of fun. Hey, your boy, A. Roberto, wants to go in Chicago there, Johnny. Shocker, right? He probably lives there, right? Does he live there?
He lives in Chicago. Well, he said he wants to go in. Oh, he wants to go to Chicago.
He wants the convention in Chicago.
Yes, Chicago would be. I mean, but it's a great location. I mean, besides all the
It's
crap
a
that's going on
great
right now,
town.
it's just in the Midwest, man. It's like central to everybody's location. You know, whether there's people in Canada, people in the South,
Yeah.
people in the East, the West, just come on and converge in Chicago. And I'm sure that we can find a way to get some good hotel deals with our connections around here.
Yeah, I agree with Mello Taylor. Convention should be held in SFL. Oh, SFLM towns. I thought they were saying SFL towns. Oh, so I guess the convention's gonna be in San Jose next year.
Is it?
Alaska.
I didn't hear that. The
No, he's saying they should be in SFLM towns. Albuquerque, Lincoln, San Jose, those kind of towns.
Cam, for some reason
Alaska.
Cam,
Coach, are you out of
just
your
so
mind?
Cam knows, he's fully capable to talk. I don't know what error we might be having on his end, but
I wasn't introduced.
oh, Cam,
I did
formal
introduce
introduction.
you.
Formal
Oh,
introduction.
ladies and gentlemen, the commissioner.
Make
Cameron Irvine.
way for Prince Cameron.
Wait a second. Every time I introduce him. Every time I introduce him, I lose him. I'm just going to stop introducing you. How about that?
Yep. Well, yeah. Stop that, Cam. Well, hey, Cam, appreciate having you on. So you said I was right about a few things, and then you want to correct me on anything or talk
He wanted
about.
to correct his grammar.
Yeah, correct the grammar. Yeah, everything you said before that, Johnny, you were spot on with. So, look, a lot has changed since the draft format has been put out in terms of the number of players that have signed. You have to look at the draft as by the end of the rookie draft prior to the supplemental draft, every team will have 17 players. If a team has 8 players right now, you will see them pick 9 players before the supplemental draft.
Okay.
So that makes sense, Cam. And sorry for interrupting. But
Yeah, no problem.
this is my show, motherfucker. No, I'm just kidding. But no, this is
Cam's just crashing
no.
the party.
I'm just having fun. I'm just like, if this is the only way I can get you on the phone because you don't answer my phone calls, then so be it. So
He answers me all the time. I don't know what the problem is.
it's just me. But no, real talk. I think the rule where there was this slight confusion on. So who has the first overall pick in the draft this year, Cam?
That would be Fort Worth.
So Fort Worth. Is there any way, like how done in last year, that Fort Worth's number one pick in the 3rd round moves up to become a 2nd round pick?
Yes.
Now, is there an asterisk there?
Not via trade. Yeah, not via trade. He's saying
Not
to
via-
take up spot vacated spots.
So it will take up a vacated spot, Cam?
Correct.
So does that put them at somewhat of a disadvantage? But like if they were relying on that for grabbing someone at a secondary position, or will they have an asterisk where they have those rights?
No, they can trade back if it's really a desperate need for them.
Okay. And I see you're putting the players first, and I understand that, kind of like what I was saying before. You're trying to get people drafted at their primary positions and enough of them at those.
When you say trade back, do you mean finding another team, another suitor in order to trade with them, or they can just move back to their original position, or what do you mean by that?
Well, they could move back to their original position depending upon who they do a trade with, right? Like you can trade with anybody. In past drafts, trades were not allowed because of the nature of this particular draft. Trades, even if the first round, are allowed, and if you have assets going into the draft, you can hold on to those assets for as long as possible. So let me give you an example. Let's say that Mexico City has one pick, right? They have 16 players signed. They only need one more guy in regards to their salary cap, right, before the supplemental draft.
Right.
If Mexico City trades back and gets 2 picks, well, they don't need both picks, right?
Right.
So what happens with the second pick? Well, that's an asset for them, right? So Mexico City could flip that pick, and they could trade it, but they have to do it before they get their 17th guy. Does that make sense? Once they get their 17th guy, that pick gets lost and reallocated just like any other. But if you the assets that you pick up and acquire within the draft are assets that you continue to keep and hold within a draft. And we did that because of the nature of this draft, and we knew that all teams are looking for different things, right? Some teams need want specific people, and they want them early, or they're drafting at positions that have very small pools of value. And some teams are looking to trade back because they are in need of players to be taken at secondary positions because there is no value remaining of the primary positions in the first 2 rounds at the position that they need. I know that's very complicated.
No. I get what you're saying, Cam, and let me say this, because there's like GMs and coaches and people who are in the chat now saying it clearly puts certain teams at a disadvantage who are trying to build their roster with value in certain positions and this and that. Now for one, and you and I we've talked about rules before and this and that, and what I love is that no matter what, teams are going to be on an equal playing field, and this is kind of a test year. It's kind of, we've broken ground with certain areas, so you're testing how these teams now. That kind of method that you're putting forth, it makes people want to do trades, which is a good thing. Now it'll be interesting, to see how all these ownership and management groups are, how they do with doing trades, and then. But what I want to say is, like, I do feel, though, there should be some type of, because the whole point is to get as many players drafted at their primary positions kind of in those first 2 rounds as possible. You're making, you put this rule in place for the players and, to get drafted at those primary positions. But if I'm a team who's drafted two players already at their primary positions, I don't get why, in my own mind, I'm getting penalized by moving up to another second round grab rather than having an early third round grab, which is very valuable to a lot of teams right now and stuff. Because I feel that I've done my part for the league. I've selected 2 individuals at their primary positions. There are other teams who decide to sign veterans, do this and that, who haven't done their part of bringing in rookies yet at their primary positions and stuff. So I don't feel that as a team, if I were Fort Worth, or if I were Lone Star, if I were one of these organizations, and I've done my part to draft 2 guys at their primary positions to make the rookies happy, to make the league happy, that I should be penalized by having to draft a third person at their at the position that I have to.
At the primary position, correct? Right.
It depends on the team, though, doesn't it, Johnny, and their situation. Some teams will see that as a negative. Some teams may see that as a positive. And either way, you have the power to change your destiny, right? You have the power to make a deal. to make a move.
You still need the other guy to click accept though, and there could be, and you could run out of options. You could run out of options, and like maybe there could be a way that they plead to the league that hey, we've offered this trade, we've offered this trade, we've offered this trade, we've offered this trade, and blah blah blah. But I was just your response is valid, but but that was just the point I was making.
At the end of the day, Johnny, the league will reach a point where teams will have 7-round drafts every year. They'll be able to trade future picks, and they'll actually be drafting, and you won't necessarily be guaranteed a spot on the roster that year because their roster's full and they have to make cuts, right? We're not there yet. This is a transitional period for the league because we're getting into the realm of these are not starters that are being drafted. These are players being drafted for depth. Right, these are players that are going to see 10% of snaps, 15% of snaps. We're not there yet, but this is a transition into that. And we've never really been able to have a draft before where, if you wanted to look to the future, you could, because there was never any reason to look towards the future because everyone always, you get to the same number, you get to the same cap, etc. But the important thing to remember about this draft is that it's a transitional draft. It's trying to get us to the next place in terms of team roster building. And there's going to be some situations in which a team finds themselves in a bit of a, no pun intended, pickle.
No, yeah.
And so for those teams, I would put it in this category. You know how sometimes when people analyze who had a great draft, who had a bad draft, same thing, right? If the cookie didn't crumble your way, if it didn't fall your way, you just had a bad draft. You still have 17 players. You still made cap. It didn't go exactly as planned, but your squad is ready for the season. And as I tell,
but couldn't it? But real quick to interrupt you right there, you still made cap, quote unquote. But couldn't you be putting a team at just like who and especially a team who's an expansion team who doesn't deserve the disadvantage because they're already at disadvantages. Now, let's say I'm going after a receiver, and let's be real. At the end of the second round, there will be the receivers will likely not be of as high value as the receiver that I could get with the first pick of the third round. So it's like, I would, so in that stance.
Don't put a receiver there, Johnny. Take somebody else.
But you've taken away my third round. But you've taken away my third round pick.
If you don't have enough spots, take someone else, and you still want that other guy.
Yeah, but I'm still. But as an owner of one of those. And as an owner of one of those franchises, I would take someone else because that's the only option the league gave me. But as an owner of one of those franchises, Fort Worth, Lone Star, one of those early round picks, I would be upset that you took away my advantage that I was graced with by finishing poorly or not being in existence last year. That I have to draft a receiver of lower value just because of other teams' decisions to keep their impeccable teams in place. Because Atlanta decided to keep their team in place, because of Chicago already signing veterans, because of all these teams that are already in place. Now you're going to disadvantage my team even more by forcing me into a second round to get a poorer quality receiver than a higher quality receiver in the top of the third round. And I understand that there's a possibility that I could go try and trade my draft picks back, but you know what? Those guys aren't going to like. Those guys are going to those early picks in the third round are going to be valued higher than those mid picks in the second round by a lot of teams. Now there's some teams that wouldn't, but likely it's the teams that would want those earlier picks that that's just my 2 cents on it. But I mean we could go back and forth on it, but you know what I mean?
No, I understand your point. I see exactly where you're coming from. I think there will be teams that are in those positions. There will also be teams that are super happy that instead of having the 25th pick, they have the 19th pick, and they might get a player that they otherwise would not have gotten if those teams were involved in the draft.
But no matter what, you have the same pick. But because if you were to just not allow, like if all the second round picks were forfeited, it would be the 41st or the 47th overall pick regardless. The overall pick stays the same number. It's just the fact that now you're putting more restrictions on my pick by forcing my pick into a round that it never was originally supposed to exist in. My pick was for the first overall in the third round, and that could have been we have 22 teams. That would have been the 45th overall pick in the draft. Even if you were to strip away other picks, it would still be the same pick that it was, but now you're just putting more restrictions on my pick.
I hear everything you're saying. I respect what you're saying. In a world in a league that is built based on a lack of control, sometimes the situation cannot be controlled. And the teams that understand that are the most successful in the SFL.
No, I hear you. No, and Cam, no matter what, I love you, and it's a great league, and it will only get greater and stuff. My whole thing is like, it is kind of a simple out by saying it can be it's the teams that can control the uncontrollable. It's like, as a league staff, you can control these things, though. You can make the amendments to put an asterisk for a team that you just forced to sacrifice some rights to for a certain round or to do this and that. It's all within your control. But like you said, it's transitional period. We're experimenting day by day, and and you're gonna get it right. In seasons moving forward, you're gonna continue to hone in, and and the market will be where it is, and to the point where, just like you said, there will be guys that just go undrafted, and there'll be seven rounds of straight up 7 rounds. Get them at their maybe everybody will be forced to pick a primary, and you better hope you picked a good primary, or you're not going to get drafted. Or you'll have all these other rules set that teams can only re-sign a certain amount of players, or else to make room for rookies. I imagine that's where it will go one day too. But it's transitional, but I do think it is just worth the discussion, and it is within the control overall.
And if I can interject just for 1 second, I like the fact that you are allowing teams that have leftover draft picks to drop them if they can't trade them. If my recollection is correct, last season or last draft, there was a trade that was made but then nullified because the team receiving the extra picks weren't able to use them. Is that why that rule changed this year?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And we usually have not. There's really no point in trades. Now, there won't be any. Somebody asked in the chat earlier if there's trades in the supplemental draft. There's not.
Right.
So, to Johnny's point about the Portland or Fort Worth, for example, they are able to take the top guys every round. They're not moving, right? Things like that. I offer up a different perspective on this, or the perspective from my angle. Let's take the situation with the rookies getting taken in the supplemental draft and the adjustments that we made to that rule set and that language. So the reason why the league decided to act in the way that it did, by meeting with owners for 3 hours, meeting with players for a couple hours, to really come up with an adjustment to the system, is because we saw the problem was so widespread. We saw the problem that was so painfully obvious, and we didn't have to wait for the failure to know of the failures that was going to come from the system. You can see clearly mass widespread failures from a system that was not prepared for the sheer amount of players that ultimately ended up playing in the minors and ultimately ended up getting subscriptions after the minor league season started. So when the league looked at that, we said there's clear failure on the horizon. While these failures that you're speaking of, Johnny, about teams getting shifted around, blah blah blah, while those failures can exist, they may exist, they probably will happen. We do not know at how widespread of an issue it will be. We don't know how team boards are going to shake out depending upon who picks what. Who takes this player, who takes that player. That shifts team strategy. We don't know what trades are going to go down, what trades are not going to go down. Maybe it all ends up working out. Maybe it doesn't. But that failure that forecasted failure is not clear, which is why I do not intend to move on that, because I need to see what happens as a result. And as I've told many people, I've told rookies this before too, the SFL is not afraid of failure. Failure is a tool to learn.
100%.
And so in that way, when we look at, I look at failure very differently probably than most leaders. I see, is there opportunity for failure? And if there is opportunity for failure, is it detrimental? Is it a detrimental failure? If it is, we must not be afraid to change to avoid it. If it is not detrimental failure, we must not be afraid to fail and learn from it. Does that make sense?
Dude, go ahead, Dave.
It's right. Go ahead. Good. I'm trying to read
It makes absolute perfect sense. And I think that you have the ideal mindset, for a commissioner. I like I said, I've done my part in running a lot smaller leagues than you have. You have your hands full, and you have this and that. And failure is a great thing. And I wouldn't even consider it failure. It's just like we may have failed a certain party, but we're going to succeed overall, and we're just going to continue to adjust on the fly, and we're going to make things happen, and we're going to see where we went wrong, and if we can't see where we went wrong, then we can't fix it for the future. So it's not like you have a blind eye to these issues. You're laying these out there to be fixed. But one thing that I would say is while we're allowed to let something fail, we can also take the extra edge to potentially have the foresight to come up with a conclusion that that equates probability of less failure. And so let me give you this example. So can you off the top of your head, Cam, name who has the first 4 picks of the draft this year?
That would be Fort Worth, Portland, London, and Houston.
Okay, Fort Worth, Portland, London, and Houston. So let's say that for whatever reason, there was a forfeiture of picks in the second round. So now, based on what we have, you would say, Fort Worth, you're now moving up from the 3rd round and 1st overall to the 2nd round, blah, blah, blah. I would, if I were in your position, I would give that team the choice to either move up to the 2nd round or potentially let someone skip over to them, because they see the value. The way this draft is formulated is different than all drafts in all of sports, because we have restrictions on certain, and there's rules in place for the first 2 rounds versus the round 3 and 4. So if you were to say, hey, Fort Worth's like, no, we know who we want, because of the rules in place. We know who we want with the with the first overall pick in the 3rd round. We skip that. We do not. We are willing to let someone draft in front of us in the 2nd round to do that. And then you go to the next team, Portland. Portland's like, actually, we want our 3rd round picked as well. Thanks a lot. Skip, go to the next team. We're willing to let someone cut our place in line. And then you go to the 3rd round, Houston. Houston's like, we would love that 2nd round pick. And then you take Houston, you move them up to the 2nd round because the other 2 teams forfeited and they saw the value in the 3rd round. And I think then with that solution, you kind of solve everybody's unhappiness and stuff. And then they can appropriately draft and continue based off their strategies put in place.
The only thing I would say about that, though, is if it's the same thing with trying to trade with teams, right? If there's no teams that want to move up, or to leapfrog us to a higher position, then we're still stuck at the same spot.
Yeah, someone will
player in primary position instead of waiting for our secondary player that we planned.
Dude, even if it goes all the way back to Atlanta, or someone will skip 15 picks forward to get a 2nd round pick. Like, someone will take the commissioner or the league up on that spot. If people say no, we'd rather have our 3rd round. Someone will see the value in that 2nd round pick.
Not picking in the 2nd round. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Coach Craven said in the chat, good God, with all the hypotheticals. That is why I don't answer Johnny's phone calls. Johnny says that it's going to be 2 minutes, but I know that it's not. And at least this way, I can speak with the rest of the SFL community, and I don't have to sit there on the phone with one person having to listen to all this.
I think Johnny had a typo, too. There was supposed to be a 0 after the 2. It was 20 minutes.
Or 200. But Johnny's making my point. There's so much that can happen, that will happen, that won't happen with this draft, that spending hours trying to fix a problem that we don't really know the we don't really have a grasp on is not a way that's I am not able to spend my time that way. If that makes sense? Like,
Sure.
It doesn't mean that there won't be a potential issue. I'm not sitting here claiming that the draft is perfect. It'll be a little bumpy. Some teams will feel really good about how the night went. Some teams won't. They feel like they got screwed. I sympathize. But this is the hard part of taking 2,100 people and saying, okay, here's how we're going to figure this out. So I appreciate Johnny bringing up all these different hypotheticals. That's what makes being in a league like this so exciting, so stressful. So it's putting you right in the shoes of the big time execs that have to make tough decisions. Maybe not the same type of decisions that we have to make, but tough decisions nonetheless. So I appreciate the conversation.
If we can wrap up with this then, would it be fair to say all teams now need to be put on notice that that third round pick that you thought you were going to get at that secondary position might very well now be a second round pick you have to take a primary position player
In terms of, you're saying that's the guy you were going for?
Right. Saying that if I have to move up because of teams that aren't drafting, and my rotation moves me from the third to the second, now I have 2 second draft picks instead of having a first, a second, and a third. I now have to find a new primary position player when I was already set to take a secondary position player in the third round.
Right, lots of options. More than a plan A is probably important.
When will these teams know their exact positions in the draft? Do they already know them? Because I know there's a lot of.
They can know them by doing, and I don't mean this like harshly. They can know them by doing the work themselves. But in terms of keeping track of signings and things, I'll be releasing, some updated numbers later in the week. I can't tomorrow, unfortunately, because I have an event and many other minor league events. But there's nothing preventing teams from being able to keep track of that themselves.
To calculate it themselves. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's big that you do, and yeah, maybe that's what puts them in position to be a GM and an owner, is to be able to calculate the stuff themselves. I will say a lot of like the reason why you get the argument that I get, or you get the emotions I get, it's because I've talked to a lot of owners, I've spoken to a lot of general managers. And they thought this draft was going to be run differently. They actually didn't even think that people were going to be forced into the first round. And like I guarantee they're scrambling at the bits. They didn't think they already had a guy in mind with a personality that they liked, with a secondary position picked out, and now they realize, oh crap, we're going to be forced into to the second round right now. So I think it's important that transparency wise, and even if it's you doing a 10-minute video yourself and just explaining how the draft is going to work, it's worth that 10 minutes or 30 minutes of your time to put it out for these coaches and GMs and owners to be able to strategize in the proper ways. Even though like you said, it's basically off last year's draft. People are going to be moved up, and the only thing different is that the first 2 rounds are going to be, you have to take a guy at your primary position. Besides that, it's all the same. Do your own calculations, see who, how many draft picks, and that means every time a free agent is signed, they might have to recalculate where their draft pick is, and what rules are applied to their current draft and stuff. But I understand kind of what you're saying overall.
This conversation has gotten so convoluted that Charles is retiring and coming back next Tuesday into the league, just FYI.
Charles, you're so fired, you're rehired.
Hey, Cam, thanks for coming on all last minute.
And Cam, one last question for you from a couple guys. I got one more. Yeah, I got one more question. Is as far as the layout for the draft this year, because there's a lot of rookies that are asking, we're going to get to it anyway, and I'm like, well, might as well have Cam on the line for it. Is that so is it going to be a day by day? Do you have the first round on one day, then the second round on another day, third round on another day, or how are you breaking down the draft?
Yeah, so we'll have the I'm trying to remember. Forgive me, because I don't have the schedule in front of me.
No worries.
I believe that it's round 1 is the 21st, round 2 is the 22nd, round 3 is the 23rd. if you've been paying attention to roster signings, I don't know why you're thinking there's going to be a fourth round. Round 5 is going to be on the 25th or 26th, I believe, and then I think round 6 and 7 are going to be the 27th.
In the future, potentially, and I know you'll just, we'll address everything in the future as it is, not to give you more hypotheticals, but like I said, this isn't coming from my voice. I'm just kind of speaking on behalf of a lot of rookies that were asking me the exact same question. If a league has the luxury of separating the days in which they draft, let's say after round 1, all of the there's no more quarterback spots because there probably won't be. There's 3 or 4 open quarterback spots right now. Let's say all the QBs get drafted in round 1. Why not after round 1, allow a player to submit to the league via the director of player personnel or via you, that I now opt out of my primary position as importance and allow me in the second round to be drafted as my secondary position?
Because we didn't think of it.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. Which was actually the very first question that we asked when you were still on the chat. So I'm glad we came full circle on that.
Yeah, right. I mean, these are good things. Like I when I spoke with rookies, I told rookies, look, in the future, there's not going to be any secondary positions. Like you're just going to get drafted the position you play. And then a rookie brought up to me, well, actually, I didn't get to play the position I wanted to play in the minors. They were all gone. So I actually want to be drafted at my secondary position, not my primary position. And to that I said to the rookie, I'm really glad to hear you say that because I didn't even think about that, right? So there are players that want to be drafted at their primary position and nothing else. And there are players that don't want to be drafted at their primary position at all, and everything in between. So ultimately, it is the league's job to, as we move forward, continue to try and put everybody in the situation that they most want to play, knowing that it doesn't always end up that way because and that's due to the league's success. You can't I would love to have 48 teams and 48 quarterbacks. I can't do it right now. Maybe one day I can, but I can't do it right now. So
48's too many.
Well, but my point is that there are situations in which we can't solve right now. We do everything we can to make the best league we can for everyone. But every player wants something different. And our mission is to serve everybody as best we can. And we know that we're not going to be able to serve 100% of people exactly how they had hoped. It's not reality. We just do our very best to create opportunities. It's why we created the minor league. It's why we'll expand the minor league. It's why we'll add more teams in the SFL. It's why we'll do all of these things. It's why we'll add depth to rosters. It's why we'll do all of these things because all we're trying to do is do the best we can for as many people as we can. And so, to those wondering how, to those that are feeling frustrated by the whole process or the whole thing, I'm very, very sorry. We are doing our best, and thankfully we're in a position where the league is so successful that we're not going anywhere and ask any player that's been here longer than 6 months, hey, do things get better here? And just see what they say. And then try not to fret so much because at the end of the day, you'll get taken care of the best way we can.
I think the majority of people know that you have the best interest in heart, and we thank you for that. We thank you for listening to the show, and we thank you for coming on.
100%, man. 100%. No, I definitely appreciate it, Cam. You're always welcome here, especially if it's something we're talking ignorantly about, and then you want to weigh in with the facts.
Which is bound to happen more.
I just want a T-shirt that says I handled the heat.
You're gonna get one. You're gonna get one.
handle the heat anytime.
There you go. Feet to the fire. Thank you, Cam. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
We
All right,
appreciate
take
it,
care.
Cam.
So, what do you guys think about that? I don't see a lot more questions. Let's see here. What happens to minor quarterbacks next season if all pro quarterbacks? Those are just silly questions. Come on. It's like
Do you have any more questions that were submitted to you today?
I think we covered all of them because a lot of them were kind of the same question worded differently or had just maybe a little different angle. But I think for the most part we got everything answered when Cam came on, and he even answered a couple things we didn't have questions on. So I think having him listen to the show and be able to pop on like that was perfect.
Yeah, let me see if I got any questions here. Yeah, this one was pretty much covered. It's from Ross Napoli. He says there was a big discussion today in the Miners General Chat about Miners QBs and RBs are unhappy about waiting until the third round of the draft because you may want to discuss the pros and cons about first and round only being primary. I mean, I mean, the commissioner covered the logistics of it. I mean, there clearly are pros and cons, and that's
But here's the bottom line, right? The bottom line is if you thought you were going to take a primary position player in the first round, a primary in the second round, and then a secondary in the third round, you just got your whole draft, your whole war room turned upside down tonight.
Yeah. So
because nobody thought you were going to get moved up into the second round and be forced to take a primary position player.
Yeah. No, that's the Cam's the one himself who highlights the word failure, and I don't even like using that word because the league's only going to get better as days go forward, and he knows that, and I know that. But failure, that's where I see failure, is that the fact that that people may be preparing their boards wrong right now, and that's a failure, from the league to communicate exactly how this draft is going to take place to those general managers and to those owners, because you and I both know that those owners, that even within your own war room and Lone Star, that you guys didn't think it was going to happen that way, So, but
right.
there's a lot of war rooms right now that didn't know that's exactly how it was going to work, and now they do know if they, were one of the 50 viewers watching our show.
Yeah, because they tuned into the weekly heat.
Yeah, and I mean, but they shouldn't have had to tune into the weekly heat to figure out exactly how it's going down, And I'll have Cam on as many times as Cam wants to go on. Love Cam. I would rather have the news from always have it. I'd rather have it from the horse's mouth. I'd rather have it exactly how it's going to be every time. But he shouldn't have to come on the heat to clarify some things. There's certain things that should just be out there for it should have been the GMs and the owners that were just in the chat making us look foolish, being like, we already know that's how it works and we've already accorded our planned our strategy that way.
It's important for the draftees to know. It's important for things get lost in translation. Even if Cam told the owners and the owners don't quite understand it, they tell the GMs a different way, and now GMs are telling them, the draftees a different way. I mean, a lot gets lost in translation. So the benefit of hearing it from the horse's mouth, you get to clear all that up.
No, very good point. Very good point.
And I think that's a great. I think the lesson to be learned here tonight is that if you have a question, you need to send it to me or Johnny, and we'll get it answered for you. How about that?
Yeah, we definitely will. Hey, shout out to Truzman. Everybody knows he's been circulating some pictures out there of him and his new baby boy Isaiah Follower.
Congrats,
congrats, to all the good hardworking dads out there, and moms and stuff. But beautiful baby. We love that he brings the positive vibes. Looking forward to what you do, Truzman, as a new halfback in Portland. I'm sure you're going to be flashy. I can't wait to see you put on the stats for that. I'm trying to think. I might have had another question that someone had submitted towards us, and you can fill in the blanks where you need to.
Andre Krim just popped one up on the chat. It says, as players who've gone through the draft process, can you talk about your draft experience and give us advice on what to expect? Well, that's kind of a two-edged question, Andre, because this draft is so different from what we experienced last year, which if you were listening to Cam, you'll know pretty much everything has changed from last year to this year. What I would say is if you haven't had a chance to watch the draft last season, go back and watch that. You get an idea of how they do the TV part, how they're going to announce things. I'm sure the graphics will be better this year. I'm sure everything they're going to do is going to be better and different this year. The only other thing that I can say, and then I'll pass it on to Johnny, is if you're talking about the pre-draft experience, and I think Johnny touched on this earlier, is make sure you're building relationships with owners and GMs and front office personnel of teams, and let them know, like Coach said in his podcast, that there's more than just a number next to your name. I'll tell you what, this whole thing that we talked about with Cam tonight, drafting a player in the third or fourth round at a secondary position, there were teams out there willing to pass up on a primary position player to get a secondary position player because they like the person better as a person and not a player. So make sure you build those relationships, get in the chats, do what you can do, graphics-wise or social media-wise, whatever you can do to help and make yourself known and make yourself different from the other people you're competing with in the draft. That would be what I would say.
100%, man. And what and yeah, that was like literally about one of the questions I was going to read was, how to is that what you received too? If you were a GM or an owner, what would you look for in a draft pick of your team? And I think that you kind of answered it there. That was a question from Mike Lincoln, defensive end in the minor leagues. If I was an owner or a GM, and I've talked to plenty of them, what I would look for in a player that's coming to my team, and you can, from a director of recruitment or whatever your position is there with the Glory, I'm sure you can answer this further than me, but I would just look for someone who's willing to get on the phone with me first off. I like to, I know a lot of owners in there, they want to hear your voice, they want to hear your passion. I want to hear someone who's passionate about this league, who I can sense in their self and in their voice that they're not just here for 1 year. I don't even care about necessarily, loyalty to a team is one thing, but what are your aspirations? I know Coach, Craven's talked about this. He loves hearing that people want to be part of the broadcasting team. They want to be coordinators. They want to move themselves up the ladder to get assistant GM and general manager. They want to be an owner one day and bring a team to New York, So, being able to say those things, saying your aspirations, showing your passion here for the long haul, even if it's like, hey man, I just want to be a player, but I want to be a great player. I want to be a great teammate. I want to be active in my locker room chat. I want to pump guys up. I have the ability to do graphics. I want to put out this content. I want to be a writer just on behalf of our team. I want to host a podcast on behalf of our team. Like whatever it is, whatever you think you can bring to the table as a person is what, me as an owner or GM would want to hear, So letting them really giving yourself a chance, getting on the phone with these guys and giving yourself a chance is kind of what I would look for in somebody.
Okay. Well, hey, we've been going for almost 2 hours, bro.
I know, man. It's almost about time to wrap it up. I think I have one more question from who's this one from? It's actually from Anonymous. Basically, what are the options on off-season player trades to go with what's the opinions on also trading future draft picks, essentially making the market match the possibilities of the NFL? And I'll let you get in on that.
That would have been a good Cam question, actually.
It would have been. And Cam already alluded to the fact that, hey, in the future, there will be trading future draft picks. Now, this is what I'm not going to speak on behalf of the league, but from understanding the league's idea of trading, and this actually has to do with the NBA 2K League a little bit as well, but, you can't, it's not as easy to make trades happen as people may want it to happen. I think the league fears that, and I'll use fear as the word. They're looking out for your happiness overall. They're looking out for the players. Cam is looking out for the players, and he doesn't want people to be in a place they're not happy with. So if you're paying money and you sign with X, Y, and Z team, whatever, that you shouldn't be forced to be traded to another team. Now I think that could be amended though, down the future when. And not that long from now. I think it, maybe already could have been implemented where people trade a star quarterback for 2 draft picks or trade this and that. If you're part of this league and you really want to kind of feel the feeling that an NFL player would feel, then you should be open to trades and you should make it clear to the league that you're for trades and that, whatever happens. I think that,
if you learn nothing else tonight, you learn that the league listens. They don't always, they're not going to do everything you want, but they at least listen and think it over and, put some brains together and try to make a decision what's best for the league. So the more ideas you have, let them know.
Right. So, that's what it is. And I think that, you also have to look at the big spectrum of things when you're talking about implementing a powerful thing like trades. If the league ever does this, I bet you they will do it similar to how other esports have done it, where they only implement trade windows. Like you have a window to trade players for picks in the off season within these 2 weeks. You have another window mid-season to get one good trade in if you want. But the problem with doing trades in like a league like this, I think the league fears just like a lot of things. Is like, what if a player wants to act too powerful for a team and then like, you know, a guy like Gabriel Manning, and I'm just throwing his name out there, he could be a great guy, I don't know, but everybody talks about him because he's the highest paid wide receiver or whatever like that. But what if he's like, I'm not going to progress my player any further unless you trade me type of thing, you know? And I'm not going to do this or this unless you trade me. So, I mean, those are things to worry about that the league has to, there's a lot of things the league has to think about prior to putting trades in place. While it could be a great, you know, end all be all, you know, we're right at that stage with everybody else, and we are doing trades, and players don't have an issue with it, and players are for it because it makes it more realistic, and you could get traded to any city on any day up until a trade deadline midway through the season. That'd be great. That'd be great if it worked, you know, with the way the league is formulated. But I think the league has to worry about a lot of things, about player happiness, about a player being forced to, if I was traded to Vancouver, which I know Andy would never trade for me, I would hate playing in Vancouver. I'd be like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I got to play with all these Carolina assholes, you know, like, but I'm just kidding. You know, it is what it is.
Everybody's throwing shade now. Even Cam just said, you got to be on a team to ever be traded, Johnny. Hey, speaking of that, hey, Cam,
don't you worry about that.
Hey, when Johnny's ready to make his decision, why don't you come on the show and let's announce it on here? Would that be within the rules of the league? If Cam's actually here on the show, can I ask you what team you're going to, and can you answer that?
From what Cam explained to me before, that wouldn't necessarily be within the rules, but maybe he could make an amendment if he was part of the show. But it has to be kind of coming from the league.
Hey, that'd be kind of fun. Maybe, hey, tune in next week, maybe, huh?
You guys are trying to get me to make a decision by next week?
I'm just trying to get more people on the show. All right, hey, speaking of that, we do have some great things coming up on the next show. We don't know when that's going to be. We're trying to keep this Tuesdays at 9 slot available so you guys can get used to it. But that could change depending on, you know, if some big things happen in the league. We may have to do an impromptu show. Who knows? Maybe it'll be next week, and this can actually be the weekly heat. Maybe it'll be 2 more weeks. We're just not sure. What goes on in the league and what you guys want to hear and the questions you have and the things that you want to talk about dictates how often we're going to have this show. So the more that you guys are involved, the more that we'll do the show. So thank you for tuning in. I'm trying to see if we got anything, last shout-outs or anything. You got anything, Johnny, we didn't cover?
I think I'm good on my end.
We're good. I think I am going to start ending the last words I'm going to have every night is have a glorious evening. That's going to be my new sign-off. for at least for this whole next season.
There you go.
Well, we'll see what happens.
Some others thought that it was rude of me to say your future Rookie of the Year recipient would be signing off, you know, and but you know but hey, you know, that's what I am now, baby. You know, so you're dealing with the Rookie of the Year. You're dealing with you're dealing with an all-star quarterback right here. 1 year, 1 all-star Rookie of the Year. Love you. Can't wait to make a decision, sign with my future teammates. Look forward to beating a lot of asses, and that's just where we stand right now. Great show. Appreciate all you guys who turned in. All the glory, yeah, you can say it, glorious to Lone Star. And you know, there it goes, man. But hey, I appreciate all you guys for tuning in. Appreciate Cam and league staff for willing to check us on our stuff and tuning in.
Marc Hurwitz, thanks for coming on. If you're still listening.
Marc Hurwitz was a great guest of the show. Cam was a great impromptu guest of the show. We appreciate you both. We love you both. We know this league's only going in one direction, and that direction is up. We'll do anything we can to be a part of that growth, and we love you. We're signing off. Anything else,
all right,
Dave?
Johnny and Dave, we are out of here. Have a glorious evening.
Good night, folks.